Yo, hello there. I'm a challenger coach and I want to talk about an advanced tactic you can use against laners. So, usually you will do your clear, I'm level 3 in here, getting my red soon, pathing top lane. Now, watch out for one thing. Right now we can visually see that Jace disappeared from the map, which means either he wards and stays in lane or he recalls, right? He could get a cheater's recall, he could just sit in lane, up to him, right? Now, watch out on his body language just a second ago. Watch. Or look at the icon. You don't necessarily have to look at his body language, but you can look at the icon as well. Up to you. I did look at the icon. So he walked all the way like this. He came out of this area, right? So it means that he either warded this bush or this bush. Likely this one, but he could ward any of those, right? He could even go for a deep ward in the river. I mean, who really knows? He disappeared, right? Now, one thing to point out that because you don't know, you have to go for one of the routes. Now, most likely the laners are usually warding these two bushes most of the times. So what you should do is just use your dash if your champion is capable to dash through a wall, right? Now, in here what happens, I'm just like simply waiting for my E to be up, right? So, as one of these bushes are warded, yet he doesn't know I'm here, but one of these bushes are warded. So right now, what I pretty much do, I just step up, start oracling, right? Because Jace was in deep in combat, right? So it's not only about that I start oracling and I start working, he's deep in lane, and he also has to pay attention to combat. So even if it would be warded, he would not have the attention, he would not actually have the attention for this, right? Because Sion was hitting his E and his Q on him, right? He had to counter it, right? So you should show up in vision range as soon as he's already deep in combat, which means even if this bush is warded, because he gave up his Q and he's stunned right now, he can't disengage from me because he has to pay too much attention to combat. So that's one of the tricks that you can use as a jungler. Collapse on them when they have to deeply pay attention to combat, right? Now in here what happens, he flashes, right? Of course not much happens, he gets killed, right? Now I shoved away for Sion. It's really great, he gets a better Rika, right? And what happens in here, I bump into Bel'Veth, apparently she did pad topside. That's fine, I'm gonna pick up my Krugs, right? I also revealed that Bel'Veth is bot lane, so I danger pinged it, so mid lane or bot lane doesn't somehow dice to Bel'Veth, right? Especially because they are going a little bit low, and if they get poked more, maybe there is a ward where maybe Karma hits in some more Qs, Achilles, some abilities, maybe they could force a dive with Bel'Veth, right? So it's really good to raise their awareness, right? Now, in here what happens, I just pick these things up, and for a reason I know this is warded, right? Jace didn't react too much when I was here, so most likely this is the bush that's warded. And it is warded, so I don't want to walk there. I ping the bush continuously for Sion, and I ping his control ward. Watch, I'm gonna ping his control ward because I know that ward should still be there. I keep pinging that bush for the Sion, right? And now he control wards it. Even though it had a second, I wasn't quite sure, so usually you should tell your laner to control ward first, right? I wasn't sure that it only had a second, maybe he could spare his control ward in this case, right? But it's better if they control ward first, you know? Because you never exactly know it, right, when did they leave that ward in. You can do some calculations, but exactly you won't ever know it every game consistently. Now in here I told him bluff a trade, bait him in, right? So in here what happens, if some people don't know the Jace and Sion matchup, if Sion just randomly Qs a minion, Jace can use his Q aggressively into him, right? So in here he Qs, right? Sort of in a way that he wanted to kinda like not be suspicious because his Q was pointed at Jace, which means that it makes him think that this guy is just not bluffing, maybe he really tried to do something, right? And now in here what happens, he wraps around and he's looking for a all-in, right? Because Sion gave up recently his Q, so his trades are not the best right now, right? So he does all-in him, but because again he went too deep in lane, he dies. So communication, playing around vision has a lot to do when it comes to jungle, let's say jungle gapping the enemy jungler, right? It's not always about the mechanics. People often assume I'm gonna win this game because how good my mechanics are. What I did here is just really basic things. I stepped up, I used my abilities on Jace, I stepped up, I used my abilities on Jace. It wasn't all that much about mechanics. Oops, wrong button.